Good afternoon, lovely day today, and we're going to talk about cravings. Okay, specifically, why do we have them, and also what can you do about them? So, firstly, let's just define what cravings actually mean, because the bottom line is that it's a desire to eat between meals when you're not hungry. And again, another common pattern is wanting to eat something sweet after every meal. So, you know, in between meals, after your lunch, after your dinner, etc. And usually, as I just said, it's for sweet or processed food that these cravings are about. You never crave anything that's healthy or vegetables or fruit or very rarely. And there can be really powerful feelings that you experience, and usually when we talk about having cravings, we mean that we're actually giving into them, rather than just noticing that you have that sort of pull to eat something but you don't deal with it. Okay, so if we talk about cravings, then there's in essence you're having them, you're eating, and it's something that can be quite disruptive. Okay, it's also something that's people can feel quite ashamed about and feel quite secretive about. They don't want to admit that that's what they do or talk about it to people. The fact that we're eating the wrong things or having to give in to these feelings can be something that can be quite hard to own up to and admit. Okay, but this type of eating, when I wouldn't say out of control necessarily, but you're struggling to regulate what you eat. Okay, so it's not really a conscious choice in a sense that you decide to have something like a dessert on a night out or for a special occasion. You really feel quite sort of strongly compelled to have something, and you're not left in peace. And as much as anything, the problem is the mind, how it affects your mind, really, and the discomfort that you feel around it. And when you're sort of giving in to cravings, at regular points during the day, it can actually add up to be a very big source of calories. Okay, and when I've coached people, that can be the thing that is actually causing weight gain or stopping them from losing weight if that's something that they want to do. Okay, so, and even if you decide that you want to change your diet and eat healthier meals, if the craving persists, then the changing of the meals isn't actually going to make any difference if your goal is weight loss. Okay, and I know all about this because cravings is something I've really struggled with for a long time. I like healthy food, I eat really good meals, I've got the discipline to make healthy choices in restaurants or when I'm in company, but on my own at home I can really feel lonely or anxious. Your mood can drop, and maybe you're just a little bit bored with sort of having to work from home and all the rest of it. And when that happens to me, I can really suffer with cravings. So it's something that I've sort of had for a very long time. And naturally, I'm not a slim person, and my weight goes up and down over the years. When my weight's gone up and down, the only reason is because of what I'm eating in between meals, not what I'm eating for my meals. So personal weight gain and loss is in relation to how well I manage those cravings over time. Okay, because that's really where those extra calories are coming from that will change my weight. Okay, and I know this is a very familiar pattern to many people. I know a lot of women who struggle with this too, which is why I really want to talk about this. Because when we don't always realise as well when we're eating this way or picking or just sort of constantly grazing, you don't always realise how many calories you're actually eating, and you don't notice. It doesn't feel like you're eating a lot. Okay, and quite often we sort of kid ourselves and tell ourselves that that doesn't matter, that's only a little thing. And the truth is that individually they probably aren't calorific, the things that you're having. But because these types of cravings and grazing patterns can happen, what one person recently told me, like 7 to 10 times a day, then that really starts to add up. Okay, and there was a time when I thought, oh God, I'm just going to add up what I'm having in between meals, and it was around 700 or 800 in a day. Okay, That's an awful lot of calories. Now, I don't necessarily advocate counting calories, and I don't, but that was a useful thing to think. An average woman to maintain weight would need around 2,000 calories a day. So if you're eating 800 in snacks, then that's a lot. If you imagine that you're eating 3 moderate home-cooked meals a day, and they were 500 calories each, and that's plenty of food. That's around 1,500 calories a day. And again, for most women, that's enough to have a steady 1 or 2 pounds a week weight loss, or keep your weight stable if you're quite small. But when you add in 100 calories a day of snacks, and then a bit extra at weekend for drinks, meals out, fancy coffees, that's enough then. You add that into moderate, not elaborate meals in your normal day. Add that snack, add that extra of weekend indulgences, and that's actually enough to steadily put on 1 or 2 pounds a week. Okay, so it really can make a difference when you think about it like that, and you'll be eating those snacks and not feeling like you're necessarily eating a lot of food. Okay, so and another thing is that level of overindulgence is a lot more than you can burn off with exercise. Okay, if you think about it, when I said that I'd eat maybe 700 or 800 calories in a day, I would probably have to exercise for 2 hours to account for that. So this is why, for women who want to lose weight, that I always advise that you really focus on your diet first, because the exercise isn't going to burn off enough calories to account for what you're probably eating. Okay, so that's really important. So key thing then is, well, why do we crave? Because one of the things that I find, if you tell somebody don't eat in between meals, that's useless information if you struggle with eating in between meals and struggle with cravings. Okay, that's not actually helpful at all. So it's much more important to understand why we have these cravings, why we struggle so much. And there are some very specific reasons that are really useful to know. One, and these aren't in any order necessarily, but one is that we're not eating enough protein. Okay, I'll talk about this in a minute. Second one is that your main meals, so your breakfast, your lunch and your dinner, aren't big enough or haven't got enough calories, not satisfying enough. Okay, it can be just out of sheer habit because it's there and you just got in that habit of just having these things when you walk past them. Menopause can actually change this as well, and that was something that I really noticed maybe 3 or 4 years ago, when I probably really noticed that cravings just went off the scale, and I couldn't really understand why suddenly I really just wanted to eat sweet things all the time and just really had this insatiable sweet tooth, and worse, that I didn't actually have the willpower or the motivation, and I just couldn't be bothered to even try and bite them. I just decided that I needed to have these things, and therefore I did. But that's something that can happen around menopause. And that's because of the way menopause affects, the sort of hormone balance can affect your mood, your motivation, and even the way you experience pleasure. A lot of people say that they feel flat when they're going through menopause, and you need to find something that's going to pick you up. And, a bar of chocolate, a biscuit, a Kit Kat, whatever your thing is, does that in an instant. And that's why we can start to have those cravings around this time of your life. Okay. Another thing that can cause cravings as well is when the balance between hard work and reward is off. So again, this goes back to this whole motivation, reward balance that you need to have in your life, because what I find a lot with women who are in the 40s and 50s, they can be in a very stressful period of their lives. You've got a lot of work, a lot of commitments, there's a lot of stress in your life. You can be going through quite difficult circumstances for many different reasons, at work, at home, with your family, etc. And you can feel like life is a real slog, all right? Because you've got so much on, you aren't getting enough pleasure or reward in your life to offset all this hard work that you're doing. And this can mean we fundamentally need to experience pleasure, reward in our lives to keep us motivated to keep working hard. And if we're not finding or having the opportunity to have pleasure, feel that we're rewarded for our efforts, then we can't actually cope with that. So we need to find a coping mechanism for it. And that can be easily, what's in your house, what's there all the time, food, sweets, chocolate, whatever it is that you like, sort of processed junk food. We almost need that to actually then give us the motivation to get up the next day and go through that slog, all over again. So because our lives at this age can actually feel very tough and very unrewarding, we've got to find a way to balance that out, and therefore we look for food and we look for snacks. Okay, so that's a really big thing, and this is why it can feel so suddenly come on and be such a powerful thing that you experience at this age of your life or this time in your life. Okay, so that's why cravings happen. So I hope that's helped you understand that a little bit more. So now the question is, well, what can we actually do about it? And a couple of things. Firstly, stop feeling bad about it or guilty. Don't blame yourself. I hope by understanding why it happens, you can see it's not just something wrong with you. You're not lazy, you're not unmotivated, you've not got less willpower than your friend. Don't blame yourself. There are external factors that are happening that affect the way you crave food. And the other thing to do about it is don't keep it a secret. Try and own it. Try and be open and honest about it. When this was, again, I talk about myself because you imagine when you go through something like that, you imagine you're the only person who does it. And I imagined I was the only person who was saying I couldn't eat chocolate and then stealing my daughters and rooting through cupboards to find things. But it's actually really common for people to do. But once you then start to open up about it and say, oh, I do this, I'm a terrible, I have terrible cravings, you almost, that behaviour, that secret almost loses its power, and you can be more, you're more aware of what's happening. And that gives you a lot more control over it as well. So don't feel bad about it. Own it. Don't let it be a secret anymore. Okay? We're all doing it. I promise you. I hear it time and time again. Okay. The next thing to do then is to check your diet. Check what you're eating each day. Have a look at your breakfasts, your lunch, and your main meal. Forget about the snacks. We're not interested here. We're looking at the main meals that you're eating each day. And you want to check, are you eating enough protein with each meal? Okay, are you eating proper meals throughout the day? It's not uncommon for women to graze or try and get by with something light. Sometimes we don't have time. Sometimes we've grown up or been brought up feeling that it's not ladylike to have a decent portion of food, and we feel that we just have to have a cracker. That's how I grew up, with a mum that stood at the sink eating off the little side plate and having Ryvitas and things. We've almost been shown that as women we should have little tiny portions and eat like sparrows. So have a look at what you're eating, because if your meals are too small and you're not having enough protein, you're going to be craving, you're going to be hungry. Now, I've absolutely definitely noticed a link around that. And once you understand your own habits and what triggers your cravings, that's really helpful. If I don't have time to have, I always find it easy to have a proper breakfast, but sometimes if I'm training clients that go back to back, I cannot find time to have a lunch if I've not made it in advance, and then I end up just picking a bit of something just to try and keep me going. Then that sends my cravings off the roof. So I know if I don't have proper meals in the morning and at the lunchtime, then I'm going to just really struggle to have cravings most of the day, to the point that by tea time I'm not even hungry because I've not stopped eating. So and what can be a really good, if you find yourself in that situation, one thing that I've tried that works really well for me is if I'm really struggling with cravings and I'm trying to resist them, I scramble 3 eggs and eat them, because that's a really big concentrated amount of protein that just switches them off like that. Okay, so just pay attention to that protein thing. You want to know how much you should be eating. If you bought the book, it's in the book. But if you were thinking for your breakfast, a couple of eggs, you might be having like a small piece of fish with a meal that's sort of like the palm of your hand, a piece of meat that's the size of a palm of your hand. If you were wanting to not eat meat, then sort of a small block of cheese, like a matchstick, has got a decent amount of protein in, as has like a handful of nuts, maybe a big handful of pulses and lentils. So, you do need, it's probably beyond me going through the details of it here, but that's what you need to be adding to every meal, and you can find that makes a big difference actually. Okay, and then the next thing you want to do is try and identify your triggers, and everyone's different. As I say, we all have our own unique patterns. So what you have to do is, when you notice that you're suddenly craving something, just catch yourself and stop, and then ask yourself, actually, what's happening? What's going on? You notice that you're craving, think about, well, what's going on that I'm doing at the moment that's triggered that? And then you start to build a picture between what drives you to want to eat versus the things that are happening with regularity in your life. Okay, so for me, I remember working from home, I think it was definitely pre-lockdown, and just finding myself in front of the fridge one day, and I just didn't even realise why I was there. And when I did the same exercise myself, I realised I had something quite difficult to do at work that I found hard to concentrate on and found hard to do on my own. And that sort of anxiety and that discomfort, it's just a real horrible feeling in the pit of your stomach. And my way of dealing with that was just to go and eat something, because that just distracted me on the moment. So for me, it's anxiety, boredom, restlessness. A lot of women tell me that they can feel quite trapped at home. You can have kids that don't really need you moment to moment like they did when they were toddlers, but you're just hanging around in case someone pops up and someone comes out of the bedroom and they need something, and you're in this sort of funny zone of not being able to do anything. So what do? You eat, because that's just ready-made entertainment. So find what triggers you, and then you have to ask yourself, well, what do I really need? Because just because I'm maybe struggling with some work, or I'm feeling restless, I don't really need food. If I feel trapped, I don't need food. Maybe I do need to just leave the kids in the bedroom and go for a walk around the block, have a chat with a friend, get some help with something. Find out what it is that you need. It could be that you just need a break from your work. People can be sat at home working really hard, very concentrated effort when you're not in an office with people, and you just need a mental break from it. Okay, so that's what to focus on. Identify your triggers. When it happens, ask yourself what's going on, and then just try and figure out what you really need in that moment, rather than to eat something that you don't need. Okay, and I talked a bit before about a big trigger for craving is this imbalance of sort of hard work and pleasure in your life, that you've got too many things that feel hard, difficult, stressful, and just not enough pleasure. Things that make you happy, things that are light-hearted, things that you feel good about the work that you're doing. If you're going to work hard, you need to have reward and motivation for that effort. And if you're not getting it because people don't care, or they take stuff for granted, or you've got work from your employment that's just going on and on and on, and there's no immediate payoff, then you're going to be seeking out little rewards yourself, and food is something that we can very, very easily latch onto. Okay, so for that, you have to have a look and ask yourself, what does your life look like right now? Do you have too much on? Does everything feel really difficult? Do you have limited options to relax, to enjoy yourself, get some fresh air, switch off? And if you do answer yes to those, I haven't got too much on, everything feels hard work, I don't have enough opportunity to sort of enjoy myself and switch off, then you're out of balance, and that could be why that you're looking for food. So in that situation, food, snacks can become a really essential reward, especially if you can't get out. And I'm going to say something quite controversial, because that, in those situations, food might be something that you actually need right now, if you don't have the option to find other pleasures or rewards. And this is why sometimes, you can say to people who want to lose weight, don't eat chocolate, don't eat sweet things, don't eat in between meals. And they know that they shouldn't be doing it, but they just cannot find out how to let those things go, and that can be a reason why. So in this instance, if that's the scenario for you, then you need to sort of just take a step back and have a plan for yourself, make some sensible food boundaries based on what you need, and if you're working hard under a lot of stress, I can't emphasize this enough, but you need consistent energy from nutritious food. Food is your fuel. If you're not eating enough, if you're not eating enough of the right things, you're going to be hungry, your energy levels are going to dip, it's going to affect your mood. You have to be eating and eating well, okay? And that's where you have to then prioritise making and eating decent meals, hearty meals with protein in 3 times a day. That's really essential. That's going to help you if you're going through a tough time, because you need the physical energy, you need the mental energy to do that, and your fuel is what goes in your mouth, okay? So make it good fuel. Then, if you are in a place at the moment where you really, women can tell me that they really have a sweet tooth and really have really strong, powerful cravings for sweets and chocolates. But instead of telling yourself you can't have that and then stealing your kids, then it's a better thing to do to actually allow yourself something, okay? And for that, you want to stick to lower sugar options, because sugar causes blood sugar spikes, and that in turn leads to more cravings. So when you have a chocolate biscuit, one's never enough, is it? It doesn't sort of sate your appetite. It just makes you want more and more and more. So you need to find things that tick the sweet and pleasure box, but don't trigger up those cravings, okay? So you want to look for lower sugar options. And I'm going to tell you what those are. Well, you can think about a couple of options. Eat sweet, I'm getting my words mixed up. Eat sweet but filling options for your main meals. If you really have a sweet tooth, have things like pancakes with berries and seeds and nuts and Greek yogurt for your breakfast. They can really tick a box. Smoothies can be great. You can use, if you're using unsweetened almond milk or coconut milk, they're still quite naturally sweet. Avocado, berries, half a banana is fine, cocoa powder. There's a lot of low sugar sweeteners that are actually quite good for you, and that don't trigger insulin response, like I think xylitol is one of them. You can add a little bit of that to things that just give that little sweet flavour, so that you feel like you're actually getting that sugar hit and not having to just eat savoury food, which isn't going to be sustainable. A great one is to go for things like dark chocolate. So the darker the better. If you're not keen on it, just maybe start with something like a 70%, which is all right, and then try and get onto like an 85% chocolate. Have a little pre-packed bar. Aldi do ones that are just sort of portion wrapped. So if you're not very good at trusting yourself with an open bar of chocolate, then buy small sizes as well, and that can often help with moderating that. And they are about 125 calories. So if you're going to have a lunch and then 125 gram low sugar chocolate bar, and you're going to feel good after that, then why not? That's absolutely fine. That's not going to cause any problems. Or you might want half the bar of chocolate and a few nuts, if you like chocolate and nuts. So lots of things that you can do around that. A fantastic idea as well is to make keto cakes. So I'm sure you're all familiar with the keto diet. There's a lot of good websites around that give you quite easy to make keto recipes. Okay, so one I have, so for my lunch today has been, I made a vegetable broccoli spinach soup with leftover veg, and I made at the weekend a batch of keto brownies. Okay, so I'm not keto, you don't have to be keto, but you want to try and lower your carb levels and lower your sugar. So what things like a keto brownie is made out of is a sugar replacer, almonds, coconut flour, eggs, butter, and you can make them for maybe a couple of 100 calories a square, but it's a pretty good substitute for a brownie that ticks that box and makes you feel like you're eating nice food that you enjoy, that you feel satisfied that you're having nice things and not feeling cravings after, okay? Other things that work are berries, low sugar fruits, berries with Greek yogurt, berries with a little bit of single cream even. So allow yourself, sort of figure out, have a decent meal, have protein in it. If you want something that's like a dessert after a meal, allow yourself to have it, but plan for having something that's going to work with your goals, okay? And that's things that are naturally sweet but low in sugar. You want to aim to have maybe 350 calories a day. So that could be a little mini bar of chocolate with your lunch, for example, or a little brownie, a little piece of, I'm talking something small, that's a couple of 100 calories after your tea, or some yogurt and berries, and eat them with your meals rather than in between, okay? And you're doing that in addition to having filling meals and protein. And if you start to think about structuring your diet like that, as in your normal things that you eat, then you can start to find that you become well fed. You're having food you enjoy, you're not feeling deprived anymore, you're ticking the sort of pleasure box because you're not just eating salad and bland soup and things that can just get really repetitive and boring. That then becomes a really sustainable option, okay? You're going to have times where cravings come up, but then that's part of like a long-term process and a bit of a journey for you to start to become more aware of what your own triggers are and getting better at not just creating automatic responses to those triggers and getting a little bit of control back, okay? So quite a lot there. I am going to put a recording of this up on my website, which is gabrielleohair.com, so you can go back and look at this. I am also doing a January programme, so at the end of January in 2023, I'm running a 10-week online programme which will give you a lot more advice on what to eat and sort of typical meal plans that you can follow for individual days, so you can eat like this and have that structure. And again, you'll find more details on my website there, and you can just have a look at the details for that and see if that sounds like something that would be useful and help you. Okay, so that's it for today. I hope you found that interesting. Do send me a message or DM me if you have any questions about this. A few people have sent messages after the last one if there's anything that you're not clear about or you have more questions about, or how to put it into practice. I'm very happy for you to just drop me a line and ask that, and I'll give you some answers. Okay? Right, that's me done. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I look forward to seeing you all soon. Okay, bye. Thanks for joining.